Hey everybody, welcome to a fishing report. We have Mike and Rich here. We're going to go over some things that have been going on recently in the Chesapeake Bay that's been really good.
Yeah,
so
fishing's still been pretty good.
It's pretty good. Just because it's a little chillier outside doesn't mean you can't catch fish.
And the weather's been pretty nice. It's still been in the 70s.
Very mild.
A little foggy in the morning, so be careful for anybody that's heading out on the bay. Just keep your bearings with you because it is a pretty thick fog. But once you get out there, the fishing's been good.
It's been great.
Yeah.
So what do you want to hit on first?
Well, most people are still doing a lot of striper fishing, and we haven't seen the number of stripers that we've been seeing.
The quality has been there. It's been fantastic. Yeah. A lot of good sized fish.
Mid-20s up to 30s. We've been getting a couple of 33-inch fish reported, so that's nice.
It's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So we start off, I guess, with trolling. Trolling's been still very productive in the bay.
Historically, we troll in the spring, and then we turn to light tackle in the middle of the summer when we got those schoolie fish around. And then as the fall starts to wear on, those bigger fish start to show back up. So we kind of switch back to trolling. We still do some other stuff, but trolling, make sure that you have plenty of tandems. It's a good idea to start carrying some larger baits like we would pull towards the spring. Just because
always throw that deeper rod out with a bigger bait.
Exactly. You're marking this fish a little deeper. There's your ticket. And make sure you grab a depth chart the next time you stop in. Those things
are fantastic.
Oh yeah, you got to have one of those on the boat so that you understand where your baits are. You're marking this fish on the sounder. You want to make sure that you have your baits at or just above wherever you're marking those fish. So that's a vital tool to have on the boat.
Definitely. I guess some shallow water light tackle fishing has been really hot these days.
Yeah.
A lot of the rivers, like the Magothy, the Severn, everything, a lot of the fish have been pushed up really far up into the rivers. Topwater has been fantastic.
Yes.
The bite has still been great.
We'll start up north.
Yeah.
So
the Tapsco.
Tapsco's been great. Fish all in the shallows. I like fishing around the Fort McHenry is great.
Yes, great.
There's something really special about fishing around Fort McHenry with Fort McHenry right there in the Baltimore City skyline in the background. You're pulling up stripers, right?
That's just great.
It's a great feeling. And I like fishing soft plastics around there, jig heads with a variety of different soft plastics. The striper snipers are a really good bait. It's basically just a really long twister tail. So you can cast and retrieve these, and that twister tail will work really well for you. But you can also jig these. They're long enough that you can actually do some vertical jigging or cast and retrieve jigging with them, which is nice. Z-Mens, we're big fans of Z-Mens here.
Especially this size, because you get into the times where there's still some smaller fish, but there are some bigger fish. Personally, I like to throw the 7-inch scented jerk shad. To me, perfect size for you can catch. I've caught 15 to 20 inch rockfish on them. I've also caught 40 inch plus rockfish on these. It's a great size bait, super durable, has that Procure scent in it, so it gives a little fish sometimes to hold on a little bit longer.
That added element,
It's fantastic. Jig heads this time of year,
3/4 1 ounce.
3/4 1 ounce.
A little bit heavier baits.
Yep. If you're throwing real shallow water, I've also gone to if you're fishing top water and the sun comes up a little bit more, lighter heads like 1/4, 3/16, and stuff like that, just to get 3/8, things like that, just to get the more suspending fish that are out there.
And for those of you that are finding breaking fish, those lighter jig heads are great. A lot of us think we want to throw topwater poppers, which work really well, but a jig head also works well in that situation, but I don't want a heavy jig head.
Right.
1/4 ounce or 3/16, 3/8, something in that range. It kind of sinks down a little bit slower through the fish. And it just kind of gives you a greater chance, not just focusing on the fish that are on the surface, kind of get down to the fish that are down below, which is nice too.
Speaking of some more subsurface baits, for all those that are throwing topwater early mornings and the sun comes up a little bit more, the fish aren't as active anymore on topwater, one of my go-tos that I always have tied are these Sabile Magic Swimmers, because it's a subsurface, slow sinking and sinking. Almost wake bait, you can make them. You can make swim bait, anything that work really well, or these Yozuri 3D Inshore twitch baits. I always have these tied on because when the fish just are not as active on topwater anymore, I've always done really well with a subsurface lure. Get those fish that aren't as active to come up to the surface. Yeah,
we got those. These Magic Swimmers are great. That articulate, they swim so realistic.
Ridiculous. Out of control.
Rapala makes some of the X-Wraps. They're actually doing these twitch baits now, and they have the single hooks on them, which is really nice.
Great for you.
Yes. Great for the hands.
Yeah, definitely.
You get a decent sized fish on it, and he's still kind of green when he gets to the boat. He's flopping around. Having those treble hooks flying around can be dangerous.
I've hooked myself quite a number of times.
So yeah, those single hooks are really nice, and these are a great size for this time of year too.
Perfect size. They imitate bait fish that they're eating.
Yeah,
they're great size.
Staying subsurface, the Rattle Trap. Big fan of the Rattle Trap. I always have them on me. I've talked about them in videos before. Big fan. I like the 3/4 ounce. Kind of matches the size of the jig heads that we've been using. These have a nice profile in the water. They can cast really far. And that 3/4 ounce, I can let them sink down a little bit. So make that cast and then let them sink down to those fish if they are a little bit deeper, and then start retrieving to get that lure diving just a little bit farther, but starting to get that action going.
I've worked those around the bridge. I know we've talked about and heard a lot of reports. The bridge has been doing really good.
Yeah.
For some reason there's always fish at the bridge, but I feel like right now the bridge is always being producing fish right now, especially around the rock piles, those big cement pillars.
Yep.
Throwing rattle traps, jigs, things like that are fantastic. Early morning, like the eastern rock pile, they're top water.
Yep.
As soon as the sun comes up, starts going down, you can go to more subsurface with jig heads, things like that.
Yeah. That bridge is such a great piece of structure, and if you're at the bridge, you got a bunch of different options, right?
Yes.
So you can fish the bridge. And a lot of guys are launching out of Sandy Point. So you fish across the bay, you fish the pilings, you fish the rock pile, kind of work your way across. And then when you get across to the eastern shore, head just a little north of the Bay Bridge and you've got the sewer pipe. Sewer pipe is a great place to jig, but we've also been getting some reports of guys chumming up there.
Yes, I've heard. People think, oh, the fall, they don't think chum. They just think lures or trolling or whatever. Chumming has been producing some fish, some good sized fish as well. It doesn't hurt to throw out some LY, chum bucket, and just anchor up by the sewer pipe.
Yep.
Tollies, hackets, all the things that we would do
A little
normally
north point.
Normal springtime or midsummer chumming, you can do now and still produce fish.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So going top water, so I do like throwing those jig heads, but I love seeing that explosion on the surface. So we've got some poppers we wanted to talk about that'll work well this time of year. Always a big fan of stillwater smack it. Look for breaking fish. Look for birds working if you can. Again, in the early morning with the fog, it's a little tough, but keep your eyes out. Stillwater smack it's a great lure. What I like to do with these, we actually sell some of these rigged up, various poppers, where we put a little leader. We take the rear hook off, and we're going to run some. I like using fluorocarbon. You can also use mono, but we're going to run about a 2 to 3 foot leader behind, right, like 2 feet usually, and then we're going to put either a small jig head like this on, like a feathered jig head. Or sometimes I'll even just put a feathered hook. Or sometimes I'll use a fly. I got a lot of flies from fly fishing. I'll use those. And when you're working that popper, the popper's on the surface just making all kinds of ruckus and noise. But that lure behind is going to hang down under the water. And it's a lot easier for those stripers to eat it. Stripers will eat a topwater popper, but they're not the best at eating them. A lot of times they try to swat at them, and we see that explosion on the surface, and we think we've got that fish. We go to set the hook, and it's not there. That fish is kind of trying to stun it, slow it down so they can eat it. Well, we've got that lure behind, that teaser hook behind. They come up and nail that. So you don't see the explosion on the popper, but it draws them in.
Definitely.
And that popper gets sucked under the water. You got that fish on.
It's almost like a popping cork, just a
exactly,
an enhanced one.
Yep.
So where are other some good places that we've heard some good fishing around
so
here?
Up north, we talked about the places up there. So heading south, we got to the bridge. Let's go a little bit farther south. So the Chop Tank, mouth of the Chop Tank's been good. Eastern Bay,
Poplar Island. We've heard some good reports. Topwater grass flats around in Eastern Bay. Topwater around Poplar, all those rocks, jetties. Any docks you can find, anything's been great. The Chop Tank, I've heard people trolling in the Chop Tank, been doing really well. Like small tandems.
And that's usually my tactic. We're going to troll around. We're going to get out to kind of where we want to be, start trolling, get some baits in the water, start covering the water, look at the sounder, look at what we're marking. And if we start marking fish, we're not catching them on the troll, let's go back over those fish and jig for them. Let's reel in the rods and get the jigging stuff out and start kind of targeting those fish. You're not finding fish trolling around, keep trolling and head into Eastern Bay, head into Chop Tank, wherever you are.
Another good spot that my dad actually had some success the other day. Thomas Point, Lighthouse. It's good structure. There's good ledges right there. He was throwing a jig head, caught I think a 31 or 32 inch fish. Doing really well.
Nice.
Thomas Point, the actual point itself with the rocks, that's another great spot for like swim baits, top water, early mornings, afternoons. A lot of nice fish have been pulled out of that area. So
farther
south, like Chesapeake Beach. People trolling down there also.
Getting that some of the deeper water, So definitely keep an eye out for breaking fish and then troll. If you're not seeing a lot of those breaking fish, start trolling and keep an eye out on your sounder. Definitely on that. Not a whole lot else fishing wise.
Perch, still some in the rivers, mostly starting to move a little bit deeper with the colder water temperature.
This is the time for pickerel. So pickerel action is starting to
show. Old pickles. Pickerels.
We're starting to see some fish being caught, and the wintertime is when we start catching a lot more of them.
Good fishing if you have the itch for fishing when it's super cold out. Pickerel always bite in the winter. It's one of their best times. Throwing small paddle tails. anything really. Paddle tails,
Yep.
spinners, just like your perch fishing essentially.
Yep.
It's a great time of year. They're
It's
so
a
much
lot of
fun. I know Sam Green, who works here, he loves pickerel fishing. He's been doing some recently, catching some good pickerel in the rivers. They're starting to show up, being more active, so it's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Outside of fishing, crabbing's still been doing pretty
still
good.
You just have to go deeper. You can't put your trout line or your traps in 6 foot of water and expect to catch a bunch of crabs. Typically anywhere from 12 to maybe even 20 foot. Those crabs are moving deeper. There are going to be huge jumbo bricks right now. Good sized crabs.
Been seeing a lot of big crabs. And it kind of happened throughout the season, but it's still holding true. So definitely give you.
We almost forgot the trout stocking. They've done some trout stocking. I know down Calvert Cliffs, those ponds down there, they've done some stock trout. So I know a few people have gone down there and caught some trout. It's always a good time of year too. It's always fun if you want to get away from a little bit of salt water, get a little freshwater fishing. Largemouth bass. They are still very good. You can still catch them on top water as well in the ponds and stuff like that. All your pan fishing's been like your bluegill and whatnot are still all over.
Definitely.
Snakeheads, haven't heard too much. You can still definitely catch them down in Blackwater and all the even in the rivers now. They're pretty much in darn near all the rivers. Severn, Magathie.
They're everywhere.
So still catch them on paddle tails, just almost like you're like almost you can probably catch them as a bycatch fishing for pickerel because you're using the same type of lures essentially. Decent sized spinners, like 3 to 5 inch paddle tails depending on how big of a fish you want trying to catch. But yeah, snakeheads are still around. So
well, I think that about wraps up this week's fishing report. So I thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Have fun. Good luck out there.